Hello, Crystal County. Nice to have you here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in. We just have a few people, so maybe while we're waiting, we can introduce ourselves. All right, I can see it's only Bukola. Good morning, Bukola. How are you today? Nice to have you here. Thank you for joining in.
Fine, thank you. Good morning to you
Good
too.
morning.
The reason why people are kind of is, I think the timing.
Yes,
The timing is
yes.
kind of conflicting. So because I had to be rushing around to check, okay, which is which. Thankfully, I'd even screenshotted a few of the trainings I'm having today. That was how I got. I just said, okay, it says 10:55, and this is just 9:47.
9:45. I think there was some.
Yes.
I think some people got 10:45. Some people got 9:45. So hopefully more people will join us.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have Adia Haweke. Welcome to the class. Thank you for joining in. Welcome, everyone. I understand there was some mix up with the timing, so we'll just give how many minutes now, because we're supposed to start at 9:45 and end at 10:25. So we'll just give let's say 2 more minutes. So we'll be starting at 9:50, please. Okay, good morning, everyone, again, and welcome to this session. So it's now 9:50. We have about 40 minutes to do this session, and hopefully others will join in as we move ahead. So today's session, okay, so I'd love it to be interactive because I'm guessing we're all teachers here. So please don't feel I'm spotlighting you. If I call on you, I'll be calling out people randomly. So Mr. Adekunle, could you please unmute yourself? Thank you. So what's your expectation today? I think first of all, I'll start with what topic are you looking forward to learning about in this session this morning? We can't seem to hear you.
Good.
Yes, we can hear you. Good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Looking forward to seeing the correlation between. Looking forward to seeing how we can use assessment and evaluation to aid learning or facilitate or improve learning in the classroom.
Thank you. Wow, thank you.
Yes.
Right. And Olateju Adeyeye, please could you unmute yourself? And could you tell us in like 30 seconds what your expectation, one expectation actually, from this session, making formative feedback work? What's your expectation?
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I've always been interested in assessment and evaluation, so I'm hoping to gain more insights into how to use assessment to better teach the children to individualize their learning more so that they gain more from our teaching.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wow. So there's something you said. You mentioned learning, right? And essentially, we want the children in our classrooms to learn. What does learning mean to us? Can we confidently say learning has happened? You know, I know that there are several schools that have this end of term. Some schools have them at the end of term. Some schools have them at the end of a session. and it's called Learning Happened. As a teacher, what determines how learning happens for the children in your class? Now, I know this topic is just talking about formative assessments, but we have two sorts of assessments, and I'm going to try to break it down so that, you know, we can see if we can draw a straight line, you know, see if we can draw black and white and no gray areas. But I have something to tell you. I think for assessment, that's almost impossible. We have two major sources of assessment, the formative and the summative. In layman's language, if I was trying to explain what formative and summative assessment means to, say, someone that is not in the classroom, or let me say a parent, because I mean, they are primary customers. Well, the children are primary customers, but we must also cater to the parents. When you have parents that understand what you're doing, you have an easier job, trust me. And I'm sure a lot of us will agree with that. Now, formative and summative assessments are intertwined. And as I said earlier, I want to explain it to a parent. What's formative assessment? It's just simply assessments that you carry out to, you know, inform you in that moment. In that moment you're teaching. While summative is essentially at the end of the teaching. You now want to determine, okay, has learning happened? So formative is ongoing from the moment you step into the classroom till the moment the children leave the classroom. Formative assessment is ongoing, so it's intertwined with learning. However, summative is end of year assessments, midterms, end of terms, end of term portfolios, JAMB, SATs, IGCSEs, all those are summative assessments. We're not going to waste a lot of time here because we're going to delve more into the formative part. Before we go into formative part, the function of education. What does function mean? Function in this definition or in this sentence, all it simply means is, what's the use? What's the function of education? What's the use of education? What's the end goal of education? And I have this fantastically put sentence here. It says, the function of education is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. Intensively and to think critically. It doesn't mean the teacher should think for the child. It doesn't mean the teacher should think critically for the child or the learner. Each learner should teach, should think, and intensively and critically. I'd like us to take a moment and really think about this. Have you ever thought about what is the end goal of all that I do in the classroom? What do I want for my learners? Yes, I know writing those exams, for instance, you have, what are these ones that they write at the end of the primary 5 or primary 6? I'm a big advocate of primary 6, by the way. So what's that one they write at the end of primary 6? Yes, common entrance. So you have, you know, some teachers that believe that, oh, the sum total of my, or the how I can be properly evaluated is if all the children in my class have passed all their exams. Don't get me wrong. Passing exams is good. But after passing exams, what next? How does the child think? How does the child interact with day-to-day living? It's not all about exams. And that is one thing that formative assessment generally guides us into thinking about. What do we want to do? We want to take a leap from a grading-centered classroom to a learning-centered classroom. I know this might, you know, go some people's oxes like, okay, at the end of the term, my supervisor will call me and say, oh, the children in your class, they didn't get all the scores, they didn't do that, they didn't pass these exams, they didn't. But you know what? We are here today to change that mindset. Formative assessment can actually work two ways, because at the end of the day, it is an assessment. But what we want to learn how to do today is use these assessments, make sure that we're implementing them to ensure, thank you for those that reminded me, common entrance examinations. So we're going to use formative assessments to see how we can ensure that the experience of the child in our class is one that lends to enabling that child thinking critically, thinking intensively for themselves, and at the same time, it reflects at the end of the day in a good grade. So one thing that we must understand as teachers and as human beings really is the intentionality of what we do. In everything we do, we must be intentional. A lot of these things that we are going to be hearing today, we do them. But sometimes we just, you know, glance over them. We do them because our supervisor has said we should do them. Or sometimes we just see it. And for those of us on social media where you see maybe a teacher that has done something, and then we want to copy it and take our own picture and put on it and, you know, show that we are working. But what we need to do is to ensure or to be intentional about each and every point that we want to include in our classroom. It is better that we have one or two forms of formative assessments, be intentional about them, and make sure that we do a good job, rather than having a multitude and then at the end of the day, we just end up confusing ourselves and, God forbid, confusing the learners in our classrooms. Let's quickly look at this slide. It talks about what is learning. And funny enough, I actually got this from Twitter. What is learning? Is it cramming for hours? Is that learning? Is it a 2-hour comprehensive final? Is it that common entrance exam? Is it something that can be run through a Scantron machine? I'm sure a lot of us will be wondering, what's a Scantron machine? It's just simply a machine that marks, I'm sure they use them in JAMB or where you have multiple test questions, and then they tell you, make sure you shade properly. So you have those machines that the scripts are fed into, and then they mark. Essentially, what this question is asking is it the scores? Is it the fear of failure? Is it knowing something long enough for the test? Can we say learning has happened in all of these circumstances? I'd love to hear or read your comments in the chat box. If you have any comments, please, you can just type it in the chat box and then we'll take it, as we go. Is learning cramming? And let's think about it. The children in our class, we just finished in a session. And I wonder, for a lot of the things that have been taught to the children, how long are they going to have it up there? I wonder why we always have what we call brain drain during the summer. And then, well, we use it to our advantage and we organize summer programs and all that. But why, if learning has happened for a child and a child has got all the fantastic scores and the child goes on a 2-month holiday, why do we always have to start all over again when the children start resuming school? Why? That means, if we're being truthful, and it actually is quite painful, because for me, it actually strikes a chord, that means learning did not happen. Let's look at the other side of the table. Is learning an opportunity to create something? Is it the collaboration among peers? Is it the ownership of the outcome? Do we make the outcome of learning for the children to own, or do we make it our own trophy? I'm the best teacher. I've been able to cover the syllabus. I've been able to cover my learning goals. Everything, check, check, check. Who is the owner of the outcome? Is it the accountability of peer review? Do we do peer reviews in our classrooms? There's something that, I don't know if it has been proven scientifically, but if you agree with me, just give me a thumbs up. Children actually learn better from their peers. I don't know. I think maybe someone should do a research, or maybe there's a research. I've seen it happen over and over again, where there's a concept that the child is finding difficult to, grasp. And, coming from a peer, the child just seems to get it. Is it the power of autonomy? Is it the freedom of choice? Is it an experiential anchor to remember and build on? If we look at our syllabus, our curriculum. I'm going to take an example from, say, mathematics, place value, the math teachers here. Place value, we start it in grade 1. We have it in grade 2 or primary 2, primary 3, primary 4, primary 5, primary 6, and I'm sure they do it in JS1. So if this is a concept that is taught every year, what kind of children, what is the problem where you have children that at the beginning of a new session is almost like we are starting from the bottom again? Where is the foundation? What is the foundation that they have to place their anchor and build on that? What makes them remember? Let's quickly look at some comments in the chat box. These are very interesting. It says, learning to me is the awakening of our curiosity to explore more on the subject matter. Absolutely, I absolutely agree with you. I think the Nigerian system assesses the learning of a child via scores attained after an examination. Well, I'm here to tell you that I've decided, that I'm going to look at Nigeria differently. We are great. We have a lot of fantastic people here. And it is not only in Nigeria that we actually put a lot of value on examination scores. That is that. And I pray that we will change that as time goes on. But what we are going to be focusing on today is, what do we do? What are the things that we can be intentional about to ensure that the process is optimal? The process is our goal. The process is what we are being intentional about. And trust me, if you're intentional about the process, the end result will always come out positively. Someone says, learning has taken place when the learner can confidently express what has been learned at any point in time and anywhere. Fantastic. And someone said, place value is done even down to year 12. Exactly. Exactly. But we still have children that have issues with some, these concepts that we keep doing over and over and over again. I hope that these slides, I'm sure we're going to get them at the end of this session or be able to access them. But what I would love for us to do is to really go through this and begin to shift our mindsets on what learning is about, what learning should be like in the classroom. Now, formative assessment is a piece of a teaching puzzle. Teaching, is not only about assessments. It has many different parts of the puzzle. Now, this is an important part of the puzzles that allows us to quickly, in brackets it says, and hopefully accurately, gauge how well our students are understanding the material that we have taught. Now, what do we do with this piece? We make important decisions about where our lessons will go next. If you are teaching in class and you are assessing the children in a continuous manner, and you find out that this concept has to be revisited, please, dear teacher, revisit it. It needs time. Don't move on to cover up. Do we need to reteach, or are children, our students, ready to progress? Do some students need additional practice? And of course, which students need to be pushed to achieve the next level? Now, how can we go about doing this formative assessments? I'm going to go to my next slide quickly because it says something that I find very, very interesting. You are probably doing all these things, but today I want to tell you that it's important to be intentional. Okay. Just give me a second, please. Let me go back to sharing my screen. So it is very, very important that we are intentional about our formative assessment strategy. Now we have morning drills, class warm-ups. You have taught a concept. As soon as the children come into class, you can make it in a fun way. There are so many ways. Let me give an example off the top of my head. I'm more comfortable with the early years, so I'll give my examples mostly from the early years. But you can see how you can, use it in your own setting and in the classes that you teach. So for instance, I've been teaching numbers, and I can put numbers on the table and say, okay, as you come into class, go and find this number. It's a morning drill. It's a class warm-up, but I have been intentional about it. I've been intentional, making it fun, making it appropriate for the age that I'm teaching, involving them, giving them a say. I'm not being the boss teacher and saying, oh, you must come into the class and you must, sit down and be quiet. And I'm giving them an opportunity to learn. I'm being intentional about creating a space for them to learn. Checking back. How are you doing? What's going on with you? I'm going to give an example. This is a support system template, and it's kind of like a guide. You can say, oh, hi, John. I see you have not completed this task, or you have not completed this homework. So how can I support you? Do you need me to help you get started? Do you need me to clarify directions? Do you need me to provide a reason for why I'm asking you to do this? Do you need me to provide examples? Do you need me to model the process? Do you need me to modify the task or provide an alternative? Do you need me to provide resources? Do you need me to provide extra time? When I was preparing these slides, and I want you to, if you have this same experience, just, support me by giving me a thumbs up. How many of you have had a situation where you were in school where the teacher gives you a piece of work to do, and the teacher starts with giving you an example, right? And this example, you are very happy with it. Oh, I can do it. And then the teacher gives you homework, and it appears that the homework is harder than the example that was given in the class. I don't know if any of you experienced that. Or there were some textbooks. I remember, okay, let me not mention the name of the textbooks, where the examples would be easy. It would flow. But once you went to the actual work, it seemed as if, in fact, what you knew, you know, I don't know how other people see this, but for me, sometimes I actually feel stupid. I would feel stupid. I would actually feel like, oh my goodness, that means I didn't understand what was going on. I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but it happened to me quite a bit. Now, in that situation, would we say learning has happened? No, we wouldn't say that. And that is why it's important that we provide alternatives. We provide extra time. We provide a system where we're intentional about getting feedback from the children in the classroom. Be intentional. If we go back, oh, that's my timer, wow. If we go back to our sources of formative assessments, you'll see that homework also is a source of formative assessments. I personally always tell parents that if your child is unable to do a piece of work at home, don't force it. Don't force it. Send it back to school. That is feedback. Classwork. Do we just give classwork? You know, it breaks my heart sometimes when I see classwork done and not yet marked. Rather than give 10 or 20 questions to the children, why not just give one and ensure that feedback is given regarding that one? Student self-assessment, mini presentations. How often do we use mini presentations in the classroom? And of course, we have spoken about it, peer evaluation. Remember that for learning to happen, we must be careful about how we penalize. If we look at the table on the left, when mistakes are penalized, what happens? Even as an adult, most times we quit. And that's where we find that the children just seem to put up a wall and learning just stops happening. However, if we look on the left, that's on my right, when mistakes are reframed as feedback, what happens? The child tries and gets feedback, tries again, gets feedback, tries again, gets feedback, tries again. Eventually, that child will get to success. We need to be intentional about what we're giving as feedbacks. And finally, to round up, I'd love to use this garden analogy. It says, if we think of our students as plants in a garden, formative assessment is equivalent to feeding, watering, providing all the essentials that plants need to grow. And summative is the equivalent of measuring the plants. How tall is this plant? How many branches has this plant? Okay, the plant grew 10 inches from November to December. Yes, that's interesting. That is something to talk about. But does it affect the growth and development of the child or of your learner? So in the classroom, in our school systems, exams are fantastic. Oh, this child got all A's. This child got 2 A's, 3 B's. Oh, this child left school at 14. The child left school at 12. The child is going to university at 18, whatever. That's all very interesting and makes good conversation pieces. But if we are focusing and intentional about the growth and development of our learners, what will we be interested in? And so we have actually it's now 10:25. So we'll just take the extra 2 minutes to ask questions. So thank you very much for listening. And I don't know if we have any questions to ask. Wow, I'm hoping that the silence means that I've given you a lot to think about. Okay, so I have a question before we go. And, oh, okay, someone says, as a teacher, as a supervisor, how do we encourage teachers to have a mind shift? Modeling, modeling, modeling. Model it, talk about it, speak about it, believe in it, be confident about it, model it, and that mind shift will come. Model, model, model. Oh my goodness, someone said they could barely hear me. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Thank you, everyone. It's been fantastic having you here. And thank you, Ms. Ecoms. Oh, right. Someone said it's network issues. So hopefully, I'm sure the replay would be available to everyone. So thank you, everyone. Be intentional, please, about formative assessments. And don't forget to go back to the lobby and join other sessions. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful, blessed, intentional day. Thank you.
Just coming to come and tell you to close the session. So now
I've closed. I have closed, and I told everybody to go to the lobby. Thank you.